Hey, everybody. Black History 365 all year, right? It's kind of cool that I can my accomplishments, are a part of Black history. So just a little bit about my story. Um, so I was born June 8th, 1958, and I was the second of 10 kids. It was a lot of us. It was a whole lot of us. And so, yeah, I was born to Hal and Elvira. Those are my parents, and we grew up in New York City. All right, so we started out in Harlem, and then back in the 1960s, New York, they did this experiment like with public housing and stuff like that, and so we ended up moving to Manhattan, and that was crazy because back then stuff was segregated. Everything was blacks and whites and stuff like that. But this experiment that they were doing in the 60s with this housing project, they had integrated the housing project. So it was Italians, we had some Puerto Ricans, it was black people in there, and we was all in there together. So it was a lot, because we didn't know how to relate to each other. Everything else was segregated, but then we all living together in this thing. So there was a lot of fighting going on. We fought all the time. And with it was 10 of us, like I said. And so when one fought, all 10 of us fought. It was just a lot going on. So we were really trying to deal with that, and those different handling different races and different cultures, different people and stuff like that. But we fought all the time because it was just we didn't understand each other, and we was in them close quarters. It was just crazy. And so but that fighting, it really bonded me and my siblings. It bonded us all together, because we learned how to defend each other. We learned how to just it bonded us together. Um, but yeah, we were definitely a very close family, and we grew up real poor. Um, my dad, he made about $12,000 a year. All right. So it was 12 of us, with my parents. It was 10 kids and then my two parents. So that's about 1,000 a year for all of us. So we was poor. We was like real poor. I remember one of the times, my brother, he stole 15 cents out of my dad's jacket, and he got in trouble for it. And we was really thinking like, man, we must really be poor. What kind of man notices when 15 cents is missing? Like, we must be poor. It's crazy. But we were, like I said, we were poor. We were a close family. We had to be because we lived in the projects, 12 of us in a little apartment in the project. So we had to be a close family. And we all had a great sense of humor and stuff too. So when I finished high school, I told when I finished high school, I think I wanted to be a comedian, but I didn't really know any comedians. Like, I didn't know anybody. I was just, I didn't know how to get into it. So I was like, whatever. One of my uncles, he worked for HBCU. And so he talked to me about college, going to college and stuff like that. I was like, oh, okay. So I never really thought about college before, but I ended up applying to Tuskegee. It was Tuskegee Institute at the time. So I applied to Tuskegee. I actually got in, and I got a scholarship. So I got a scholarship to get my engineering degree. So that was interesting. So when I went to Tuskegee, there was only like a few of us from New York. So I used to like tell my stories about being from New York. I used to like just make people laugh all the time. So I remember one of the other guys from New York. He was like, "Oh, have you ever been to the Improv?" And I was like, "Improv? Like, no, I never heard of that." And so I got the phone book out and I looked up. I was like, Improv. I looked it up, and it was crazy because the Improv was actually like a mile from where I grew up at in New York. So it took me to travel thousands of miles away to find out something that was like right next to me. It was crazy. So I looked up the Improv and stuff like that, and then I remember. Finally, my senior year of college, I just made it in my mind. I was like, okay, I want to be a comedian. So I went home and I told my family, like, I want to be a comedian. The first person I told was my grandma, and so I was like, Grandma, I think I want to be a comedian, and she was like, baby, I've known you all your life. You ain't never been funny. And I was like, wait, what? I ain't never made you laugh or chuckle or nothing, So, and then my mom, she kind of went off. Like, she didn't want me to leave college or nothing like that because, like, we was poor. So it's like we were kind of counting on that, stability and just really, count on me getting that engineering degree. Engineering, that pay a lot. But so she was really counting on that. But it's crazy because, like, years later, as I became successful and stuff like that, one of my younger brothers, it was time for him to go to college and stuff like that. And so he wanted to go to Howard. And so he told my mom, oh, yeah, I think I'm going to go to Howard. And she was like, you going to college? You better go to Hollywood and get that money, So it's crazy how it all switched up, But, yeah, so I ended up getting into comedy. I had went to check out the improv and stuff like that. That's where I met one of my good friends, Robert Townsend. And so he was getting started in the industry and stuff like that as well. And so we really connected. And so me and Robert Townsend, we actually, did a couple movies together, I remember we had acted a little bit. And then, he was like, oh, I want to direct, And I was like, well, direct? We don't really know too much about directing, and so we just did what we had to do. We didn't really know much about directing and all that stuff. We didn't know about like getting permits and all that stuff. We just knew we was like, okay, we seen somebody. Well, just clap twice if the cops is coming, and then we just So we didn't know about permits and all that stuff, but we learned as we went. We ended up directing a couple of movies, and then I ended up having a meeting with Fox. So Fox was a new network at the time. And, Fox was like, okay, we want you to do this show, They was like, you could do what you want to do, And I was like, anything? I was like, I could do anything? Are y'all sure? And so we ended up doing this show. They, when we first, were about to air and stuff like that, they wanted to cut out a couple scenes, because they were like, okay, this might be too much, They were like, well, let's do a little bit first, and then we're going to integrate some stuff in as a time goes. I was like, nah, let's just let them all have it. If they don't like it, they don't like it. It's whatever. Right? Some of y'all might know my show. Yeah. Some of y'all might know my show. But yeah, that was my show. I ended up, I had a lot of my family members on there as well. We also had, some new stars too. Jamie Foxx, he was on there. Jim Carrey, Tommy Davidson was on there. David Allen Greer, yeah, J-Lo was on there. So we went on to do 5 seasons of that show. And then I went on to just write, direct, produce, like a lot of other different movies. Y'all might know some of them. Y'all know some of my movies? What movies y'all know? White Chicks. I did White Chicks. Low Down Dirty Shame. What else? What else y'all know? More Money. All right, yeah. 5 Heartbeats. I did that too, Scary Movie. And then that goes along with my other movies. So my original movies, I did Hollywood Shuffle. I'm Gonna Get You Sucker. So, but yeah, I'm just glad I was able to contribute to Black history. So yeah, who am I? That's right.